first job after first job in design was at Honeywell
Yeah.
Technological Solutions, and you have described it as an ideal start for
Yeah.
yeah. So, uh, what are the metrics and what are the parameters based on which you can say start is an ideal start for a designer?
Okay. So we were talking earlier about uh, design college being a place where your empathy is kind of lighted up, and you become more idealistic in your approach towards life. So imagine this person who has become extremely idealistic,
Yeah,
and he goes to a place where he sees compromises, where he sees everything is into जुगाड़.
yeah,
बहुत ज़्यादा रिस्पेक्ट नहीं है डिज़ाइन की. आप you can cut the corners,
yeah,
and nobody is pushing himself or herself in the design team.
yeah.
पुश नहीं हो रहा है मतलब टुवर्ड्स एक्सेलेंस. तो आप क्या करोगे, आप भी फिर समझोगे हाँ ऐसा ही होता है.
Hmm.
डिज़ाइन कॉलेज तक ठीक था, लेकिन अब इंडस्ट्री में तो ऐसा ही होता है कि ऐसा ही होता है यार, ठीक है मतलब क्लाइंट है, ये है, वो है. सो luckily that did not happen with me. If that happens with you at some point of time where you're mature enough to understand that this is not right,
Yeah,
then it's okay. But at that time when you're just coming from college, तो उस समय ऐसा हो जाए तो you are not able to gauge. You'll just be very disheartened.
yeah,
आपकी जो मशाल जली थी वो बुझ जाएगी,
हाँ,
and you will just think that this is the right way or this is the way which happens. Luckily, because there was this guy called Utkarsh Biradar, and so he is the founder of Momo, and currently he's working with Shop Clues, and he was with us, leading us from the front, like really standing for design in most ways. He must be compromising at his end. I don't know that, but at the junior end of things, he did not let us compromise.
okay,
His brief to us always was, do what you think is right. Of course, he would grill us on design and our thought processes, but he never said that don't do the right thing. Do the right thing, which really helped me. So I think a place where there is a good manager who respects and believes in excellence in design is a key. Second, the company itself. Does it have projects where uh, a young designer can really still think big? For example, there is a software which is like
yeah,
a calendar software, simple calendar software with notes or something like that. Let's imagine that there's this thing, usual calendar, and then you have brought in and said, इसका next version बना दो. और पर next version ज़्यादा कुछ मत करना. You can't do this, and you can't do this.
yeah,
This is your project, first project in the company. You'll be like, तो करना क्या है फिर? This is it, and they've already told you what to do.
तो उसमें मैं क्या करूँ?
मैं क्या करूँ? मैं बस बना के दे देता हूँ.
हाँ,
So am I like just a visualizer? So all those thoughts about empathy, big thinking, storytelling, वो तो सब चला गया.
हाँ,
तो कंपनीज के पास डिज़ाइनर्स को देने के लिए बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स भी होने चाहिए.
हाँ,
And that is how I think that is when the company should hire designers also. Companies should not hire designers only for making mocks or only for making screens. If you're not letting the designers do some big thinking, some storytelling, you're actually not using them.
yeah,
So you're stifling गला घोंट रहे हो आप अपने डिज़ाइनर्स का, उसका कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है. They will leave at some point of time. And a lot of people ask me also, यार Ankur, designers don't stay.
yeah,
Designers too emotional, too sensitive. Yes, they are, but also the fact that you gave them wrong work adds on to it. Money will sustain them for a while.
yeah,
Money will not sustain them forever. आप किसी को मजबूर करके तो करा सकते हो थोड़े दिन के लिए काम, लेकिन हमेशा नहीं करा सकते. So that did not happen with me at Honeywell. They had some big projects. They had a rural healthcare project. They had an urban healthcare project where they were investing a lot in Indian healthcare. But it was still fantastic because of the fact that you had a good manager. The team believed in excellence and pushing. There were a lot of reviews, critical reviews by designers. Again, having a review with a product manager, with a person who doesn't understand design is good. But for a new person, it can be devastating. Because somebody coming in telling you, ये कलर अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है.
क्या करें आप?
क्या कर सकते हैं?
कलर भी बताओ.
हाँ मतलब अभी आप ही बता दो कलर क्या करना है.
Yeah,
है ना. तो कलर देख लेना बॉस, लेकिन उसके पहले जो वायर फ्रेमिंग हुई है, उसके बाद जो थॉट प्रोसेस गया है, इन्फॉर्मेशन आर्किटेक्चर है, जो स्टोरी है, उसको भी देखते हैं. सो यू नीड दैट काइंड ऑफ डिज़ाइन मैनेजमेंट ऑन टॉप टू अंडरस्टैंड द फैक्ट कि एक यंग बच्चे को कैसे संभालना है. इफ़ यू आर नॉट डूइंग दैट, यू पुशिंग दिस गाय एंड सेइंग जाओ कर लो अपने आप, फिर नहीं होगा. So I think all these factors are very important. I have tried to do that in my wherever I have tried to build teams that protect people, protect designers, and push them hard.
Yeah.
Protection doesn't mean that let them go back home early. I mean, they can go back home early. I have very open thoughts about time flexibility.
Yeah.
But uh, we'll not compromise on quality. We'll not compromise on quality of design.
Yeah.
If we have said that we'll give two options, we'll make those two options as fine as possible, as correct as possible. जब हाथ में जाए किसी के वो ऐप या हाथ में जाए उसका प्रोटोटाइप तो लगे कि यार ये मज़ा आ गया. This is something. Before he starts commenting about the color, there should be a connect with that thing already, and then he will not comment just about the color. So that level of refinement or that level of commitment to the product will come only when there's a lot of push. So push young people, but don't tell them to compromise on design. That's how I think it should be. And of course, the scope of doing something big is also very important. If you go to a startup where they're already dying to send the next release out, and you go in as a new designer or old designer or whatever designer, you will still get sucked into the cycle of sprints and releases, and that might not be the best place to go for a young designer.
Okay. So, like you said, you have worked on interesting projects in that Honeywell and like aerospace, healthcare. Now, I'm very intrigued to ask about these projects because this is an intersection between engineering, tech, and design. Because Honeywell seems like to me a very tech oriented and engineering oriented company rather than a design company. Like most of the products are like B2B front facing.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me the responsibilities you had and the processes that you followed at Honeywell?
Yeah. So I'll talk about a couple of projects. The first project, which is very close to my heart, is the healthcare project.
Okay.
So we wanted to, Honeywell wanted to put telemedicine inside rural areas as well. So there are PHCs, which are primary healthcare centers. But PSC doesn't have too many doctors. Doctors are not ready to go there, and because they're in the interiors and it's difficult to go there, doctors usually don't end up going there. But for a lot of people, that's the only first point of contact. So what we were thinking is that can we have trained people who can use some digital devices to at least do the first level of healthcare, and then if the patient is more serious, he or she is sent to the district level. And to do that, we were tying up with Karnataka government to provide them this technology.
Okay.
Honeywell already had a company which was called Homemade. Homemade had these digital devices which they were using for elderly care.
Okay.
If a person is in at their home, so they can measure their BP, weight, pulse, and heart rate and everything else, and these devices send the data to the doctor. So that technology was existing. So our task was, the technology is existing, home technology. How would you kind of now bring it in this scenario and put it at the PHC level, where the trained nurse or trained technician can still measure these parameters of people and send the data to the doctors in the city. So this became like a dream project.
Yeah.
Like for a new person coming in, this is like a dream project, and they were ready to invest in research.
Yeah.
So we might have these notions about India and interiors,
Yeah.
and different problems, caste, this, that, diseases, and the fact that we could go inside and understand these problems to a minute level, how religion plays a part. Can the same kiosk be used by different people, of different castes, of different diseases, notions about disease, notions about blood test? Will they be pricking their hand in front of a machine or not, if there's an assistant there?
Yeah.
So this kind of really made the problem very interesting, but also very difficult to solve. So the solutions we had were a lot of solutions. Some of them are implemented, some of them are not implemented. Some very simple solutions also we came up with, that awareness by itself would be a solution. Now, if you go and tell this to a company will say, go away, I want a product. But Honeywell had the courage to say, okay, if the design team feels that awareness is the biggest problem, give us solutions. Give us solutions, we'll give it free with the products. We will distribute them free as advertising. We will distribute them free as CSR initiatives, and that is again something which opened my mind. We did make a product which looked like a kiosk at
Yeah.
the end, but we also came up with these host of calendars, dials, and a lot of different kind of amazing stuff which we got patented, which we got awarded for. We got a good design award. We got so many things for these things which weren't even in the scope.
Yeah.
So therein lies the greatness, I think, of understanding of the leadership, saying that यार प्रोडक्ट बनाने गए थे तो क्या क्या बना के लिए आए वर्सेस प्रोडक्ट बनाने गए थे देखो क्या क्या लेके आ गए. It's just how you look at it.
Yeah.
So, and to tell you frankly, the product wasn't so successful, but these things are still there. So, I think that's the beauty of design and open design thinking. That although we were pushed into making something, when we came back with something else and told that is a much bigger problem, and language and these religion issues and caste issues, and these are big issues, and how do we solve them through awareness, how do we solve them through stickers, how do we solve them through plates, very different ideas, and the company supported us. Aerospace, we were designing, at that time the interactive devices weren't so popular. In fact, I had not seen an interactive device on the Boeing before that. And the idea was to create that experience of how will that device be like, and what would be the interface like. At that time we weren't even called UX designers. I think UX design as such wasn't still a very known term.
So this is back in what year?
This is in 2007.
Okay, this is for the consumers,
This is for the
for the
consumers,
travelers,
travelers.
customers.
So travelers, you have now you know that screen now,
Yeah, yeah.
but at that time that screen wasn't really common. Only very special flights had those screens, and it was not for consumers. Mostly, it was like for business jets or chartered planes with requirement for that. Coming it into a consumer category for Boeing, it was very interesting, and Boeing gave this project to Honeywell, and then Honeywell does a lot of stuff for Boeing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was pretty interesting. Again, we had no reference points. तो रेफरेंस पॉइंट नहीं है, अभी डिवाइस है, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, मतलब सो हाउ डू यू रियली गो अहेड विद सम प्रॉब्लम विच नाउ इफ यू आस्क मी इट्स सिंपल, देयर आर सो मेनी रेफरेंस पॉइंट्स, बट बैक देन देयर वाज नो रेफरेंस पॉइंट एंड वी एंडेड अप मेकिंग अ हॉरिबल first design.
Yeah.
It was gradients, it was blue, and but then yeah, it was rejected obviously.
Yeah.
And but then it gave us a lot more things. Then we started using fluorescent writing. We started using things which now are very simple. Although right now what happens on the screens is not good for the eyes. There was a stage in the middle when we were looking at stuff which is not so. So for example, if you look at Kindle, the technology which Kindle is using, it will not harm your eyes.
Yeah. It doesn't like give out.
Yeah, it doesn't give out light. It is just lit there only, and that's how it is. Current devices are not that good. So we were working on the middle where we were saying that okay, brightness is not a point, and how do you work with colors in a way that so movies weren't going to be there anyways.
Okay.
What was going to be there was aircraft information, lighting, controls, and stuff. That's it. There were no media content at that time. So we ended up making a black and white thing, although we were asked to create. So we used. So what I'm trying to say is that with no reference point, sometimes you do make big mistakes, and we did fail for 3 or 4 months till we got it right, and then they used it.
So months were invested in making the
Yes.
first
Yes.
draft that got selected.
Yeah. The first thing which got rejected.
Okay. Right.
So it was rejected, and because we had to make a working prototype.
Yeah.
So it was not just design. Then you had to work with the development team to make sure. So we actually had a small cabin made near to our design lab, and so जैसे cockpit type का मतलब बनाया पूरा उसके पीछे. We got the chairs.
Some extensive research into the product.
So we got the Boeing people to do it. Because if we would do it wrong, the ergonomics will go wrong. So we didn't do that part. What we were trying to do is only the device part and the sizing and what should be the right size, what should be the right angles. अभी तो सब clear है, पहले clear नहीं था. So we had no ergonomic guidelines to help us at that time, and that became a very big bottleneck. So design failed, no ergonomic guidelines, so that also failed. People could poke in flaws. So yeah, so that became a big learning point.
So you designed for Philips. What are the basics of designing a UX for a handheld physical product?
Okay. So Philips, I was a part of the people research team. It's a worldwide team, so I had the opportunity to work at Holland as well with the design team there, and came back to India. And so the product was basically a handheld ultrasound machine,
Okay.
which was to be used in camps or places where the larger machines are not available, and you have deliveries which will happen very quickly, etc., etc. So not in the typical hospital scenario, but more like emergency scenarios and stuff. So the healthcare worker or the doctor might have the machine here, and she might use the other hand. And so the problem was that now one was a size. It wasn't like it was more than 5.5 or 6. It was around, I think, 7 point something, which makes it like a phablet size. And how do you hold the phablet and then do something with your thumb?
Yeah.
And the whole interaction had to be with the thumb.
Yeah.
So that became a big problem. Uh, we tried multiple things, and we wanted to do a circular design. And so the studies which we started doing was getting people thumbprints and putting paper on it, and getting thumbprints and trying to understand what's the right size, because we did not have any ergonomic data on what's the right distance from the corner where the circular dial should come, because that will be used for brightness, that will be used for zoom ins. And then we also need another button which would change the menu. So okay, how do you choose brightness, how do you choose zoom in, how do you choose contrast, how do you choose some other color doppler effect, or those kind of effects. So you needed a tap as well as a scroll.
Yeah.
So that became a big problem because the rest of the fingers are behind,
Yeah.
and it's a pretty heavy device also. So you don't want them to always do like this. They have to hold it like this as well. Sometimes they might hold it like this. So those were the kind of usability studies we did. We made prototypes. We made wooden prototypes of this thing which measured in weight equal amount, and we put papers on top of it, and we took thumbprints of people, and we put inks on people's hands, and we asked them to press here, press there, and see how difficult, easy was it. And then we kind of heat mapped it
Yeah.
and say that कहाँ पे जाकर उनका हाथ आराम से जा रहा है, कहाँ नहीं जा रहा है. And we're talking about Indian hands. We're talking about Indian, mostly women hands. In uh, so we did not get the exactly the same set of people, but we got the same demography in terms of age and in terms of backgrounds also in some cases, and got them to do this here, there, everywhere. And we got this excellent, beautiful heat maps in that ये इतना distance पे हाथ आराम से आता है, यहाँ पे यहाँ जाता है. And we started experimenting with that. So that was a very interesting exercise which became like a guideline of how to make an ergonomic uh, you know suggestion for a phablet, or for a circular dial. What basis are we putting this dial there, and on what basis do we have a tap here? So this distance. And the second experience we had was around a cardiac center, which was conceptualizing a cardiac center in Bangalore. What they said was that they had the technology where a person can just stand, and things will happen, and he doesn't need to take his clothes off, and a lot of parameters will be measured just by him standing. So the idea was to create a lounge experience. Even at the initial stages, there was a sense of healthcare and lounge
Okay.
and heart care might not go together. It's like we health, wellness and lounge goes together,
Yeah.
but heart care and is like a little more chronic or a little more sad to really enjoy
Complicated,
with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So but there were some business reasons which were saying that no, this will work, and we have tie-ups and this can work. And we are saying that ultimately cardiac care is wellness, and so it's not so sad as well.
Yeah.
But when we did our research, when we did our extensive research with people, and we made these models where we showed them what will happen and this will happen, we realized very quickly that this is not going to work.
Okay.
And so this also happens, right? And it's very good to just quickly call it out and say this won't work out. And that should also be a designer's job. I think a lot of times this happens that when we get into studies, especially usability studies of products, we are so committed to the product that when we realize that this might not work, we still go ahead.
Yeah.
We still go ahead because working back on it will kill us.
Hmm.
अभी तो यार मैंने वापस गया तो काम खत्म हो जाएगा.
हाँ.
So let it go. We'll correct it later. I think it might be interesting to wait at that moment and think again. and say, am I compromising? And should I just do it again versus letting it go?
Yeah.
That's a critical call which a designer should take while in research. If you've understood that this might not work, pull it back.